Welcome back to another edition of Our City. A few things going around the city of Elizabeth this week. I'm going to be at the New Jersey League of Municipalities, the 102nd Annual Conference. It is titled Realizing Tomorrow's Potential. I spoke about it briefly on last week's show. I'm going to preside over the Urban Enterprise Zone Mayors Commission. This session includes mayors and economic development directors, urban enterprise zone coordinators. They're representing the 33 urban enterprise zones throughout New Jersey, and our efforts to get UEZ funding back after the Christie administration eliminated the funding. In addition, I'm going to join mayors from Perth Amboy, the mayor of Plainfield and East Orange, and this seminar, Urban Mayors, will talk about cities in economic transition under a new paradigm. And this session should prove interesting for not only civil servants, but people around the state as well. And on Thursday, November 16th, Trinitas Regional Medical Center is sponsoring a free health event entitled Caring for Your Caregiver. This program will take place from 5 to 7 p.m. It's located at the Trinitas Core Building, 1164 Elizabeth Avenue on the second floor. Space is limited and registration is required by visiting trinitasrmc.org/caregivers. We're going to talk about that in the first segment of this show. And on Saturday, November 18th, the third annual Charity Gospel Concert, which is being presented by Shunem House, HIV/AIDS Awareness Seminars. This event takes place from 6 to 10 at the Liberty Center, which is located at 1121 Elizabeth Avenue. Also that evening, I'm going to attend the Boy Scout Troops 101 Court of Honor. And this dinner, they'll present their newest Eagle Scout, Mr. Chris Nunez. This event will be held at Our Lady of Fatima Church, located at 403 Spring Street. On Sunday, November 19th at 2 o'clock, I'm going to attend an exhibition displaying the work of Elizabeth artist Dario Scholas. This event is being hosted by the Snyder Academy, located at 42 Broad Street. For more information, please call 908-353-2131. And if you need more information on these events or any other events, please call our Public Information Office at 908-820-4124. Please stay with us after these messages, where I'm going to be back with Miss Roxanne Ruiz-Adams.
Sometimes you learn by helping others learn. Kane University.
Welcome back to Our City, where I'm joined by Miss Roxanne Ruiz-Adams, a licensed clinical social worker, an LCSW and MSW, and currently going for a doctorate. Thank you for joining us on the show.
Thank you for having me.
So tell us about your position and your work at Trinitas, Roxanne, and some of your background before we get going.
Sure. As you said, I'm the licensed clinical social worker for the Trinitas Comprehensive Cancer Center, which is a part of the Trinitas Regional Medical Center. I got my master's at Fordham University, and I'm currently getting my doctoral degree at Rutgers University.
So is the work challenging in dealing with not only patients with cancer, but their families?
Sure, it's very challenging. Right now, my role, I support patients as they're going through treatment, but it's also to support their caregivers. Caregivers come in and they're worried about how to do the right job by their patients. So I provide them with support, case management when necessary, and support on their end when they have questions about what to do next.
So your job's not 9 to 5?
No, it's not 9 to 5. Sometimes I do stay later so I can talk to caregivers who are post their jobs.
Sure.
Yeah.
So the responsibilities actually that are associated with your job, is it meetings with people every day, or is it phone calls, or hooking people up? What do you got to do there, Roxanne?
It's a combination of all that. I set aside hours to meet with people one-on-one. So when patients are undergoing treatment, I'll go and visit them in their rooms. We'll talk about what they're experiencing. If family members find themselves stuck, they'll call me. We'll sit together one-on-one or over the phone. I'll walk them through what their next steps should be, or I'll just encourage them and normalize the kind of feelings that they go through.
And can you tell, I mentioned in the opening comments about the Caring for Caregiver program sponsored by Trinitas Regional Medical Center. Who is considered a caregiver?
So when we say the word caregiver, we mean those who are providing direct care to their loved ones. And their loved ones can't really take care of themselves independently, whether that's by illness or disability. But we also include the friends and family members, friends and other extended family members who find themselves preoccupied and worried about their loved one's care.
So I found myself going through this recently because my wife had a 5-hour back surgery.
Wow.
So I'm making coffee, which I don't drink and never made in my entire life, and bringing it. And it's kind of an interesting process being a caregiver, where you now actually the other person's needs become the priority. So do caregivers run down? Do caregivers get sick? Do caregivers forget about themselves?
Absolutely. One of the common themes that I see when working with caregivers is their personal health values tend to be lower on their list. They put their loved ones' needs ahead of their own, and sometimes they fail to realize that inadequate care of themselves will lead to inadequate care of their loved one. And inadequate care can lead to medical emergencies that not only put themselves at risk, but will put their loved ones at risk in the future.
So how do you counsel that person? How do you counsel that caregiver to say, hey, take it easy, and the person says to you, listen, I have to do this. I have to take care. How do you tell them? Slow down, maybe that's not the right word, but take a few moments, go to a movie, I don't know.
Well, we
What do you tell them?
we definitely do a needs assessment and see what is possible for that caregiver, what's in their network. Do they have friends? Do they have other family members that can assist them in their caregiving? Because it's very important to ask for help when you're a caregiver, though you may feel ashamed to. But one of the least difficult exercises I give to my caregivers is just to take 5 minutes of mindfulness, whether that's a 5-minute walk, whether that's sitting at the table for 5 minutes, undistracted, drinking coffee or tea to center themselves so that they can just begin their day.
So what do you think of the program? Like, how important is this program to a community like us?
I think this program is very important because at some point, one, if not all of us, will play the role of a caregiver or will be a support to a caregiver. So understanding what the community offers in terms of support, understanding some of the challenges that might come up in being a caregiver helps us be more empathetic to one another and also helps us guide one another.
So Roxanne, how do you know if people got something out of the program? Do people ask questions? Do they feel like they have a good feeling about themselves when they leave? How do you know they're getting something?
I think the best measure of what people get out of the program is by the questions they will ask and measuring how much more likely they're going to ask for help.
And the challenges that you see when working with the challenges could be almost anything, but what do you see?
Sure. One of the most common challenges I find is the feeling of guilt, and I also often find this with adult children caring for their elder parents, where there's this implicit expectation that they must now relinquish their life to be a caregiver, and any joy or relaxation felt outside of the role of caregiving is somewhat of a betrayal to their parents.
What do you tell them? Go to the hockey game,
No.
Go to the baseball game, go out to the pub. What do you tell them?
It's important to recognize that we're not alone when we're doing this, and the feeling of guilt is actually very felt amongst the caregiver community. So I definitely normalize and acknowledge and support, but there's actually a great team of social workers at the Trinitas Regional Medical Center that helps sit with caregivers, educate them on self-care strategies, educate them on services, and support them as they go through this process.
Do people get it? Some get it right away, some take longer. How do you know when they get it?
Do we really ever get anything in life?
No, we don't.
Ups
You're
and
right about that,
downs.
Roxanne. Yeah.
You learn as you go.
How do you help address challenges when they arise, and does Trinitas offer the training? You talked about some of the caregivers that are there. Is there things that Trinitas doesn't offer and you got to refer out to as well?
Usually financial assistance tends to be a big concern with my caregiver, so that would be a component where we would refer out to agencies or nonprofits that do fundraising for caregivers, but mainly our social workers are available to help caregivers go through this journey.
You don't get people that walk in, though, do you, Roxanne?
Actually, I do get people
do.
who walk in, and I will help them.
You will? And you'll chat with them and give them advice?
Sure. And if I can't give them the right answers, I will refer them to a place that can.
I didn't know in that field people could just walk in. It's not like an emergency room, but it's...
No, it's not an emergency room.
But for them it might be.
Right. But even if they call, we will make sure to refer them to the right location.
exercises, routine caregivers. You talked about the 5 minutes. Sometimes people may need more than that. What do you tell them to do?
I mean, the walking is very important. I think along with the mindfulness, walking kind of balances those need of endorphin reliefs for positive energy, but also that needed distraction when things just get too intense.
Time management and schedules. That's got to be a big one. I mean, after all, everybody has their own. 24 hours in a day is not a long time.
Sure.
So how do people not only manage their own time, but manage the time they have to be a caregiver as well? How do you help with that?
It's so simple, but honestly, the best investment a caregiver can make is to buy a calendar and a planner. I feel that a calendar and a planner helps a caregiver organize their own personal appointments, hold them accountable for their own self-care, but also balance the appointments of their loved ones. And even some caregivers who are the most organized and have the best memory, they sometimes start to lose track of the activities because of the added pressure of the responsibilities. So these planners really help center them and zone them into what they need to do next.
It's like that little medicine thing where you go from S to S, right? Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and you...
It's kind of like a pill organizer,
That's right,
but you're doing it for your activities.
Right, exactly.
Yes.
You kind of keep it all together there, right?
Absolutely.
So where and when is this caring for the caregiver going to be held?
So the program is November 16th, and it is from 5:30 to 7 o'clock. It is located in our core building, which is 1164 Elizabeth Avenue, second floor in Elizabeth, New Jersey.
Now, do you physically work out of that building, or are you?
No, I physically work out of the Trinitas Comprehensive Cancer Center.
Or you work out of there? And is there anything you want to tell our viewers how to assist someone? I mean, what would be the first thing you'd tell them?
Well, one of the things I would hope people take from the program is becoming much more aware of who their caregivers are in their social network, whether it be a loved one, a friend, or even a neighbor. An act of kindness, some nice words, asking them how their day is, even bringing them some food helps ease the burden of being a caregiver. And
how do our viewers get to register, or how does anybody get to register?
So to register for the event, you would go to www.trinitasrmc.org/caregivers, or they can call 908-994-8939.
I wish you lots of luck with this
Thank you.
seminar, and I think it's extremely important that there's people out there showing caregivers on what's expected, and not only that, what's expected of themselves to stay healthy as well.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Roxanne, for a very
Definitely.
informative session.
Sure.
Please stay with us after these messages. We'll be back with Battalion Chief Mike Materio talking about fire safety, especially as the holidays approach.
We're an American original, dependable, historic, nuanced, with all the comforts of home, even when you're just visiting. So we're celebrating for all that we've left untouched and all that we've changed. A place where the past meets the future. So consider this your invitation.
We've been celebrating here in Elizabeth for 350 years, and we're just getting started. Welcome back to our city, and for the second half of tonight's show, I'm pleased to be joined by Mike Materio, who's a battalion chief in the Elizabeth Fire Department. Mike, welcome.
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks for having me.
Now, you've been on before.
I have. Yes, I have.
And this time of year, we usually spend it talking about not only smoke detectors and fire detectors, but fire prevention in general. And the Fire Prevention Bureau, where is it located? What does it do here in our city, and what's it made up of?
Okay. The Fire Prevention Bureau here in the city of Elizabeth is actually made up of myself. I've been there for about 5 years, and I oversee the Bureau. We have a fire official, we have our fire inspectors, and then we have our secretarial or administrative staff. Fire prevention here in Elizabeth is located at 411 Irvington Avenue, which is fire headquarters. We're on the 3rd floor, and for those that don't know, that's the fire station on the corner of Irvington and Prince. And our main objective, or our main goal, is to ensure the safety of all of our residents and the community of Elizabeth in general. And we do that through a few ways, primarily through inspections. We have our inspectors go out. We inspect our commercial businesses, our commercial occupancies, our larger residential occupancies. We work with the state. In conjunction with the state, we ensure safety of all of our public schools, our hospitals, and overall are life hazards, which are prioritized occupancies. We also oversee all of our public events, including parades, festivals, gatherings. We take in all of the complaints that come in throughout the city regarding fire safety issues. And lastly, we provide fire education services in regards to fire prevention and fire safety, all the way from our preschoolers up to our seniors, and we do this for all of our communities.
So, Chief, tell me about smoke detectors in houses and apartments. What's the number that people should have? What should they shoot for? How many should they have?
Well, primarily we recommend that you have one per bedroom, and we recommend that you have it either in the bedroom or no further than 10 feet from the entrance of the bedroom. We also recommend any living spaces, and if you have either finished attics or finished basements, we also recommend them there.
And hallways.
Yes, you can have them in hallways. In general, it's always safer. There's no problem with having extra detectors. It's not having enough. That may cause an issue.
And naturally, the clocks are changing, so I know what I grew up listening to,
Right.
but when do you replace batteries?
All right, good question. We'll do the whole thing. The unit themselves, as we were speaking earlier, no more than 10 years. So we do recommend at about 10 years, you replace the entire unit.
Well, it's funny you said. I mean,
Right.
we were talking before, and
Right.
I said my carbon monoxide detector went off
Correct.
last night,
Correct.
and it was beeping. So it wasn't because of carbon monoxide; it was the batteries. Replaced the batteries, and it was still beeping.
Right.
Replaced the batteries again; it was still beeping. So
Right.
what does that tell me?
The monoxide detectors themselves are cumulative, or they absorb, the gases as time goes on, so they become less sensitive with time. So 10-year period, the entire unit, periodically test them. We recommend that all of our citizens test them once a month.
And how do you test them? Like some people don't even know. You just push.
You'll see it on the unit itself. You'll have a test button on the unit itself, and you can test it and then just follow the manufacturer's instructions. And then the batteries, we recommend twice a year, daylight savings time, spring and fall, replace the batteries.
And that's the best way to stay on top of this.
We do, yeah, we do.
So tell me
recommend that.
about the ones, and there are some, and I think I have one in my house, that's tied directly to fire headquarters or police headquarters. An alarm would go off there.
That is correct.
Or corporations or businesses,
Yes,
they have them more so.
You'll have per se, a central station monitoring, which you'll have a third party.
Or if you have an alarm system like ADT or something.
That's what that is, right? And they'll monitor your premise, or your home, and there should be a trigger or if there should be an alarm activation, they'll notify fire dispatch immediately.
And if a smoke alarm sounds, what should someone do?
Okay, first and foremost, you need to get out. And with that being said, if you have somebody close to you and you can assist them, by all means assist them. If you can verbally alert other people, alert them. Get yourself out as quickly as possible. And when you get to a safe area, obviously, dial 911.
Too many people die in 911 first, though, and
Yes,
right?
yes,
The first thing is to do is get out.
yes.
Sometimes smoke alarms go off and there's no fire and nobody sees anything. Is that a reason to not get out?
No, you always want to get out. You always want, and you want to try to get everybody out, as quickly and as safely as possible. Call 911. There could be various reasons. It could just be something as simple as an alarm malfunction, or if it could possibly be per se a combination alarm, which does carbon monoxide, which you may not, you're not going to see it, you're not going to smell it, and that may be cause for alarm. So, sure, anytime there's an alarm, you want to get everyone out.
Chief, if you live in an apartment, is it the landlord's responsibility for smoke and carbon monoxide detectors, or is it your responsibility?
Yes, it would. That would fall on the landlord. Mayor.
That would fall on the landlord.
Yes.
So if you don't have them and you move into an apartment, the landlord should be putting them up.
Yeah, for all our residents that may notice an issue or a problem in their apartment, obviously they can notify the landlord if the issue persists.
So they call the landlord first, and if the landlord refuses, who do they call?
They can call fire prevention, 908-820-5555. 4040, they can ask for the fire official. We can assist them in all ways possible and see what the issue is. And if we have to relay or refer it to one of our other city divisions, we'll also assist with that.
So carbon monoxide poisoning, what creates it and how do you prevent it?
Okay, carbon monoxide poisoning is actually, it's a product of combustion. So anything that burns or anything that produces a flame will inherently produce carbon monoxide. And for those that don't know, carbon monoxide is a colorless, odorless gas. It's a little lighter than air, and it's poisonous, and it displaces oxygen. So it's very lethal, and that's why it's important to make sure that we always have whatever appliances you have in your home that can produce it. Gas stove, gas hot water heater, gas dryer, gas furnace. You have to make sure all those things are working properly. And
this is probably a question that a lot of people misread. Can smoke detectors detect carbon monoxide?
They cannot inherently, unless it's a combination detector, which those do have the potential to do both.
But a strictly fire and smoke detector will not pick up carbon monoxide?
No.
And homeowners with fireplaces, what's the recommendation?
Good question. Okay, so we do have a lot of our single-family homes, have fireplaces, and we recommend that the homeowner use a state licensed or certified maintenance or cleaning company at least twice a year. As far as the usage inside the property or inside the home.
But if you never used a fireplace, you don't need to clean it, right?
Well, you should at least have it checked once as a baseline. But tips for using them, the season is coming. People do like to use them. Make sure that the damper or the flue is working properly, okay? If there's a screen mesh or cover, make sure that's closed. And try to always supervise it. So in other words, don't overload it or load it up and then leave the house. Make sure you're around to keep an eye on it. And make sure that you have an extinguisher, or at least some type of liquid or water or something, close by just in case. You should have.
Well, I had a fire in my fireplace. Were you working that night?
No. Not that night, but I do remember.
Yeah. But mine was caused because a breach in the wall in the fire. I guess the age of the fireplace.
In the flue, yes.
How would anybody detect that?
Well, that is one of the reasons why we do recommend having a maintenance company every
Right.
2 years or so come and check. Not only will they check the main box, but they normally go up on the roof and they check from the top down.
We don't do that kind of work, right? That's
No,
a
we don't.
private firm needs to do that. How do you properly use a fire extinguisher, and which type is recommended by the Fire Prevention Bureau?
Okay. Basically, the three main types, when you see them, they're either Class A, B, or C. A is for ordinary combustibles, wood, papers, any type of, that's your most common fire. A Class B, when you see B, that would be for a flammable liquid, that type of fire, grease fire. And then C would be for electronics or appliances, and that's usually like a powdered extinguisher. And they all operate relatively the same. We teach in all of our educational classes the PASS acronym, which is to pull the pin, to aim, to squeeze, and then to spread it out side to side.
Is there a
to
one-size-fits-all for a house, or not really?
Usually for resident, obviously the ones we have are a little larger. But usually 2 or 3 pounds. There's not a problem with using the larger ones. They're a little bit heavier. 2 to 3 pounds is usually pretty good. And again, we normally recommend either an A or a B. Those are the more ordinary types of fires that people are going to encounter.
So, Chief, if there's somebody listening that has hearing impaired in their family or visually impaired in any way, shape, or form, how are they alerted to a fire?
Oh, good question. There are specialty type detectors, and what they use is they use an additional strobe. And we always recommend that if you have these installed, have them installed by a professional or an electrician, and they work in conjunction with each other. So when you have someone who's either deaf or hard of hearing, there's a special strobe that goes off when the detector itself goes off.
So when that strobe goes off, they can see it and they can get out. I see.
Yeah, that would be the
sometimes fires happen in an appliance, a toaster oven, things like that. And then, should you put it out with the fire extinguisher? Should you get out? What do you do?
Again, 911 obviously is our standard response. But with those, we like to tell people, because these do happen from time to time, don't touch the cord, because we don't know if the cord is
Compromised.
If there's a current running, if there's a short current running through the cord. If it's something small where you think you have access to a circuit breaker, by all means shut the breaker, never touch the appliance or the cord. For that, if you had a Class C extinguisher, you can certainly use that. And again, if it's something where it's spreading or it looks like it's going to spread, get yourself and everyone else out to a safe
So the holiday
safe
season's
location.
approaching. Safety suggestions, everybody uses extension cords, power strips, overloads.
Yeah.
How do you tell a person, hey, it's too much in that one wall socket?
All right. So with power strips and cords, first and foremost, one of the most important things to remember is don't use them together, number one. It's very rare where you're going to have an extension cord that's rated for the actual power strip. Power strips are normally meant to be installed directly to the receptacle, so you want to keep that in mind. Your power strips, when you buy them, make sure that they're UL rated, okay? So make sure they are UL rated, and figure out how much of a load you're going to put on there. Read the instruction manual, see how much they can handle, and then see if your apartment or your house, see if the system can actually handle what you're going to be putting on the cord itself.
And a professional can tell you that.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was my next thing. We're going to, contact an electrician, and they'll let you know. As far as the extension cords, normally what we tell everybody, just be careful. Don't put them under carpets and rugs. Try not to, overload them, and don't piggyback them together. Don't connect. They're really not meant for that. And with any of these things, if they're warm to the touch, disconnect them and call somebody.
Chief, I want to thank you for taking the time. Every year we
Absolutely.
go through this around this time. We
okay.
hope we can educate some of
Absolutely.
the constituency about not only the hazards that can take place during the holiday season, but cautionary tales regarding smoke alarms as well. So
Very
thank
good.
you.
Thank you
very much.
Thanks, Mayor.
I want to thank Battalion Chief Mike Materio for that great explanation, and for the first part of the show, Miss Roxanne Ruiz Adams. I'm Chris Bolwage. We'll see you next week on another edition of Our City.
Offering everything you could want from college, including a life. Kane University.